Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to the channel, and man, I really appreciate you guys joining me for today's video. Got a little fun story for y'all today. I'm gonna tell you the story of the 3 longest runs I've ever made in my entire tournament careers, as far as how far I actually went to find or to get to my fishing spot. One of the things about bass fishing, as far as my tournament fishing, approach, I always try to get away from people. It's like my ideal tournament fishing situation is I don't want to see another person. I don't want to see a house. I don't want to see another sign of civilization where I'm fishing. I just want to see fish, water, and woods, that type of thing. So I've always been a person that has really tried to, get away from the crowd a little bit. And I've made a lot of long runs in my career. So today we're going to talk about the 3 longest ones I've ever made. Also, guys, before we get started, just a big thank you. I want to thank everybody who's taken time to subscribe here to the channel. I really appreciate that. And also, guys, thank you very much. If there's one thing you guys can do to support the channel and, just give something back, just use and bookmark that Tackle Warehouse link of mine. Thank you very much for everybody that's been doing that. I really appreciate that. That's something that really, really helps the channel out a lot. Okay, guys, out of all the tournaments that I fished, it's like the longest runs that you can make in a tournament are really, it's relegated to how far you can go on the lake. And most lakes across the country, about the farthest you can run is probably, 40 to 60, maybe 70 miles one way. But, there are a few systems out there, particularly river systems, that, allow you to make those longer runs. So 2 of the 3 that I'm going to talk about in today's video were on those river systems out there. So anyway, let's start with the first one, and how I calculated the mileage on this. This was back, when I made these runs, this was back before a lot of technology. And I used to buy one of those gazetteers, gazetteer maps, and you could take a piece of string, and there would be like a legend on there that showed you the distance of everything. And you could take a piece of string, and you could, string it through the length of the lake or the river, and you could calculate, pretty accurately how far it was. So I'll go 3, 2, 1 as far as my third least to the most here. Okay, my first one, guys, the third longest run I ever made was 130 miles one way, approximately 130 miles one way. This was at the FLW Championship. God, I can't even remember what year that was. I think it was back in the late 90s. This was on the Mississippi River at Greenville, Mississippi, on the southern part of the Mississippi River. And if you've never fished the Mississippi River, we used to fish down there quite a bit. There's quite a few of these oxbow lakes off of the river system itself, and they used to be really, really good. I mean, there's not hardly any bass on the Mississippi River itself per se until you get up north. Down south, there's not that many. But there's a lot of those really good backwater areas over there those fish got into. And in this one particular championship that I fished, I knew about this one backwater way up the river. It was like 130 some miles up there. And again, I didn't make the run in practice. I went up and I launched in that lake up there in practice and had a lot of bites. And there was like a marina in this little lake there, so I knew I could get gas. And at the time, I had a 50-gallon tank in the Ranger boat that I had. I think it was an old Ranger 360 or something like that. So I knew I could make it there in 50 gallons and gas up and have enough to get back. So anyway, I went up there, I launched in this little lake up there, got a bunch of bites on spinnerbait, just throwing spinnerbait around shallow wood. But the thing about these oxbows is they are connected by these channels that run out to the river. And you never know if you can get into these channels because they could be silted in. So what I did is, after I figured there was fish in this thing, I waded this entire channel from the lake part back to the entrance of the river. And it was about close to a mile that I had to wade. And this channel was only probably 15 to 20 foot wide, super, super narrow, a lot of turns in it. And there was a lot of little sandbars in there where it would be this deep. So guys, I waded that entire channel all the way from, the lake to the mouth of the river there. And I took sticks, and I put sticks to mark the shallow areas to stay away from them. So I ran just to make sure I could do it. I ran from the lake in practice out to the mouth of the river, And it was freaking harrowing, guys, because it was so narrow in there that if I would have got stuck, there's no way I could have got out of there. I'd have probably had to hire a helicopter to get me out, but I made it in and out okay. So anyway, the first day of the tournament, I ran up there 130 miles one way. And I think the first day of the tournament, I believe I was in second or third place. Second day of the tournament got a little bit tougher. I think I dropped to seventh, and I wound up finishing in the top 10 in that tournament by, running, approximately 260 miles a day for the whole tournament with that. It's number 3. Number 2 was a Bassmaster Invitational at Lake Powell in Arizona. And this was back in the 90s again. I think it was the early 90s this was. The only tournament I ever fished at Lake Powell, which is absolutely a beautiful lake. And the only thing I knew about Lake Powell, and this was before you had any information, this was before the internet, this was before cell phones, this was before anything. And me and my buddy Danny Correa, we decided that we were going to run way up the lake to the end of the lake, because I'd actually read about some tournaments that they had down there back in the early 70s, or excuse me, the late 1970s. In fact, Gary Klein won his first Bassmaster tournament, I think in 1979, there at Lake Powell. So the only thing I knew about the lake is there were some fish way up the lake. So Danny and I got a wild hair, and we were going to run as far as we could. And there just so happened to be, there was a marina, 2 marinas on the lake, one about midway and one at the very upper end of the lake. So we ran to that mid-lake marina, got gas, and then ran all the way to the end of the lake up there and started catching some fish. We were catching fish, throwing a spinnerbait down shady banks, and we were also throwing a worm around some big shady boulders way up there. And we calculated it up that night on the Gazetteer, and we figured the closest we could figure it was 152 miles one way. So we ran it up there every day of the tournament, 150 miles up there, 150 miles back. We both made a check in the tournament. Danny caught his on a chartreuse bladed spinnerbait, and I caught mine on a little ringworm, casting it around shady boulders. But that was over 300 miles a day for 3 days in a row in that particular tournament. Also in practice, guys, Danny and I ran about 100 miles up the lake one day, and Danny's boat broke down, and we got about probably 30 or 40 miles back from the takeoff, and his motor blew. I had to tow him back all that way. It took us all night long. He broke down like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I towed him all the way back to the marina, and we got back in like 7 o'clock the next morning. It was unbelievable. Okay, but the big one, the big mama of all time, and I've actually related this story before, but you may not have heard it. A lot of you guys on the channel that hadn't been here that long. It was another FLW tournament on the Mississippi River out of Memphis, Tennessee, this particular tournament. And Memphis, Tennessee, there's no bass around there. Everybody was making fairly long runs, anywhere between 30 to 60 miles to get to these backwaters. And I fished down there, I practiced for 2 days, and I couldn't get anything going. I think I caught like 1 fish in 2 days, so we had one more practice day. So I'd had another backwater down there it was forever down there. I didn't even know how far it was, but I remember I caught a lot of fish in this backwater, years before that. And I said, I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to drive my truck down there and launch in this backwater and see if there's any bass there. So anyway, guys, I drove down there. It was like, by car, it was like a 2.5 hour drive. I get down there, I put my boat in the water, and the water's up, and there's a lot of flooded willow trees in the water. Guys, I was flipping a big 1/2 ounce black and chartreuse jig, and guys, I shook off over 20 bass. In like the first 20 minutes I was on the lake, I shook off over 20. So I got thinking, it's like, I just shook off 20 bass in 20 minutes. I said, if I can just fish down here an hour, I'm going to get a good limit of fish. So went back, calculated it up again. I figured my closest estimate was 190 miles one way. And there was a little beat up marina gas tank. There's, this little mom and pop gas marina down there in the place, so I knew I could get down there, but there's no way I could make it 190 miles on the boat I had. So back then you were allowed to carry gas in the boat. So I went down to Walmart, got a bunch of 6-gallon cans, filled them up, strapped them into the back of the boat there, ran down there cold the next morning, had never seen the thing. By the way, guys, the Mississippi River is the most dangerous place I've ever ran. There are logs floating. There's giant whirlpools in that place. There's wing dams that go out in the lake. It gets super rough in certain stretches of it when you got like a strong south wind against that strong south current. Very dangerous place to run a boat. So ran down there. I think it took me a little over 3 hours to get down there, maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes, because I had to stop and put the gas, from the 6-gallon tanks a couple times in there. I got down there, I went straight to the marina and filled the boat up, so I wouldn't have to mess with it. And I looked at my watch and I figured I had probably 45 minutes to fish before I had to run back. I caught a limit that weighed 22 pounds in about the first 10 minutes. Ran back, was leading the tournament after the first day. So at this point, I'm like super concerned because of the run. Anything could go wrong, but I'm super jacked because I know I'm going to win this tournament if I can get down there. Same thing the second day, ran down there, did the whole routine again. This time it was windy. That second day, I got down there, and in 17 minutes, I caught another limit close to 20 pounds. And it took me over 4 hours to get back that second day. In fact, it was so rough that I barely made it back. I got within about 3 miles of the takeoff that second day, and my motor my motor stopped. I don't know what the deal was, and I'm running low on time. So there was a river buoy out in the middle of the river, and I'm like stressed because I got a big bag of fish. I know I'm going to win this tournament if I can just get in. So I tied up to this river buoy, and about 2 minutes later, here comes Rick Clunn. And Rick Clunn stopped, picked me up. We threw my fish in his boat, got back, and I'm leading the tournament again after the second day. So the third day of the tournament, FLW provided boats for the top 10, so I didn't have my boat. Ran down there, got the camera boat on me and everything, and get down there probably, 5 miles from the takeoff down there, and the motor blows on this boat that I'm in. So to make a long story short, I didn't get hardly any time down there. By the time, we switched boats, got everything, tried to figure out what the deal is, gassed up, big hoo-ha, didn't have any fishing time, caught one fish down there, and, finished, I think, 8th or 9th in the tournament. If I had just got down there, I would have won the tournament. But anyway, guys, that was my 3 longest runs. 150 miles, 130 miles, 150 miles, 190 miles one way. But like I said, there's not many places you can do that. It's got to be a really special spot. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk later.